The groundskeepers at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania take special pride in their work, for in this stadium the phrase home field advantage becomes a harsh reality for visiting teams. The Steelers are unbeaten in the last 13 consecutive regular season games played at Three Rivers. The cream of the NFL has come to play in the stadium, and the Steelers have won regardless of the quality of those teams or the nature of their personnel. But while Bashful, Sneezy, Dopey, Grumpy, and Doc would pose no threat for the Steelers, the team they face today is no Mickey Mouse Club, for they face John Ralston's positive-thinking Denver Broncos, who, like the Steelers, can envision themselves in the playoffs at season's end. Ralston has worked miracles with the Broncos this season. Denver shows a winning record after 9 games for only the second time in their history. But more importantly, they now find themselves just 1/2 game out of first place in the AFC West Division. Today's game provides an interesting matchup of the Broncos offense, the highest scoring team in the AFC, versus the Steelers defense, the second stingiest defense in the conference. Terry Hanratty has taken over the Steelers offense since number 1 quarterback Terry Bradshaw was injured 4 weeks ago, and has led the Steelers to wins over Cincinnati, Washington, and Oakland. So the Steeler offense has not missed a beat, but if it should, they can always fall back on golden shoes. Several Steeler defensemen have taken to wearing golden shoes in the belief that their defense is pure gold, and indeed it may be. The Steeler rush line has harried enemy quarterbacks into an astounding 25 interceptions in just 9 games. Steel is an even better metallic description of Pittsburgh's defense, but for today's game, one of their girders is missing. The NFL's outstanding defensive performer last season, tackle Joe Green, will not be starting, as he has been hampered by back spasms during the week prior to the game. The two teams have met twice before in regular season play, and the Broncos have won both times. But a win for them today is far more important. The Steelers have a comfortable cushion in their conference, but if the Broncos hope to stay alive in theirs, they must have a win today in Pittsburgh in the NFL Game of the Week, the Denver Broncos versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. As is his custom, before every game, Denver head coach John Ralston huddles with his players in the center of the field. Whatever spell it is that he casts, it has worked thus far for him this season. For Pittsburgh, Ralston must have come up with something special, for on the game's opening kickoff, the Broncos came up with the ball. Rocky Bleier fumbled when popped by Tom Jackson, and Maurice Tyler, number 23, plucked the ball out of the air. The Broncos had the first big break on the game's very first play, as Tyler's recovery brought Denver a first down on the Steeler 15-yard line. But the name of the game in Pittsburgh is defense. On Charlie Johnson's first 2 play selections, Denver came up minus 10 yards. On the first, Johnson's pass was a little short of its mark. On the second, Johnson again tried to pass, but good coverage in the Steeler secondary set up L.C. Greenwood's sack of Johnson. On 3rd down, another pass fell incomplete, so Jim Turner was called in, and his 32-yard field goal brought Denver a 3-0 lead after just 78 seconds had been played. Ralston has implemented several defensive innovations this season, too. One of them has the Bronco defense holding hands in the huddle. The Denver defenders draw strength from each other in these on-field seances, and it nearly brought another break when Hanratty's first pass of the game was nearly intercepted. Passing was to be the Steeler game plan for the first half, and despite the near interception, Hanratty continued to throw, and the Steelers began to move. Pass to Preston Pearson got the Steelers their initial first down, and from better field position, Hanratty began to air it out. A 22-yard strike to Ron Shanklin carried to the Denver 23, but from there the Steeler offense was shut down. To make matters worse, the usually reliable Roy Girella missed a 23-yard field goal, and this inability to get the ball across the goal line from in close was to be one of the keys of the first half. But the Broncos weren't having much success moving the ball either, as their first 3 possessions yielded -7 yards. Meanwhile, Hanratty was sticking to the bombing run attack, and on the Steelers' second series, he almost hit tight end John McMakin with a long one. McMakin thought he should have had it, but it would have been an unbelievable catch. Still, the play had nearly clicked, and so on the Steelers' next possession, Hanratty tried again. This time the pass connected for 44 yards, and Franco Harris tanked it 17 more, carrying to the Denver 9-yard line. But for the second time in the first period, the Steelers could move no farther, as the Bronco defense toughened up whenever the Steelers threatened. Once again, Pittsburgh called on Girella's leg. This time he hit to tie the score at 3. But the Steelers had now been close to the goal line on 2 occasions, yet had just a field goal to show for it. On occasion, a couple of Girella field goals are enough to win for the Steelers, for their defense can make almost any lead stand up. Johnson was having no luck running, but when he went to the air, he began to move the Broncos. Though they lead the NFL in interceptions, experts credit the Steelers' front 4 with forcing many of them and believe that the Steelers' secondary can be cracked open. In the second period, Johnson was moving the Broncos by passing, but this one to Rowdy Odoms was nullified by a penalty, killing the drive, and the rest of the first half would be eaten up on 1-ball possession drive by each team. On the Steeler drive, Hanratty changed his attack to a ground game, but after getting 2 first downs by the rush, Terry went back to the big play attack. Frank Lewis made a baffling, bobbling catch off Calvin Jones, and the play is even more remarkable when we see a repeat. Hanratty made a good fake to Harris, but was still pressured and was nailed by number 79, Barty Chavis, as he threw. Chavis's rush caused the ball to be underthrown slightly, but Lewis still made the grab. Chavis could only watch downfield and say, "What's the use?" Lewis carried to the Denver 13, but once again the Steelers could not get into the end zone. The Steelers again had to settle for the field goal. Girella made it, but the Steelers then got a big break. On the play, the Broncos were called for a personal foul, giving Pittsburgh 4 more cracks, this time from the Denver 5-yard line. But with Ralston beaming positive thoughts to his defense, and his defense doing their hand-holding thing, Pittsburgh was again stopped without a touchdown. The Steelers had had first downs on the Denver 23, 9, 13, and 5-yard lines, and had just 2 field goals to show for it. Still, the Steelers led 6-3, but the Broncos mounted a drive of their own, and using up the rest of the second period, Johnson drove Denver toward a score. After Floyd Little ran for 9, the Steeler defense threatened a Bronco drive when Dwight White dumped Johnson for -8. It was but a momentary setback. as Johnson then hit Little on 2 consecutive passes to get a first down. Little was held to 37 yards rushing, but was making significant contributions as the first half's leading receiver. The good running was being done by rookie Otis Armstrong. Finally, from the 4, Johnson tried for Odoms in the end zone and had him, but Odoms couldn't hang on. So out came Turner, and his field goal brought Denver into a tie. 8 seconds later, the half ended with Denver and Pittsburgh tied in a tough one, 6-6. At the start of the second half, with the game tied 6 apiece, the Denver Broncos, led by steady, heady Charlie Johnson, started a drive that began on their own 34 and would end 11 plays later in the Pittsburgh end zone. The drive started with a 10-yard pass to Riley Odoms for first down, but from there, Johnson stayed on the ground, mainly employing the quick trap by Floyd Little. With Little and Joe Dawkins slanting for 3, 4, and 5 yards at a clip, Denver moved inexorably downfield in measured strides. Something to remember in this game was that Pittsburgh's great tackle, Joe Green, was on the sidelines with an injured back. As Denver moved downfield against the steel curtain, the chant went up for Mean Joe to enter the game. Playing in his place was number 74, Tom Keating, a 10-year veteran and former All-Pro with Oakland. Keating is a good man to have in support of the regular front 4, but he is not the player he once was for the Raiders. So with the stands rocking with shouts for Joe Green, the Steeler defense had its backs to their goal. From the 10, the Bronco line cleared the way for Floyd Little to go in for the score that put Denver ahead in this game. For Floyd, it was touchdown number 12, just one away from his Denver record he set last year. A repeat shows Denver's fine blocking, but also that Little put a great move on safety Glenn Edwards, number 27. Denver's ball-controlling offense had given them a 13-6 advantage. The Bronco defense was magnificent also throughout this third quarter. Because the Denver running attack effectively ate up the clock, the defense wasn't on the field long, but when they were, they stopped Terry Hanratty and his friends cold. Their big target, of course, was Pittsburgh's top runner, Franco Harris. In the first half, the Denver defense had held him down. In the second, they shut him off completely. Harris would gain only 53 yards on the day as the Broncos pursued him from sideline to sideline. It was even worse for Preston Pearson. Pearson would gain only 8 yards for the entire game. In the third period, Pittsburgh had the ball only 8 plays to Denver's 19. On the first series of the fourth quarter, however, Hanratty and the Steeler offense pulled themselves out of their doldrums. Pittsburgh's running attack had gone absolutely no place, so starting from his own 20, Hanratty went to the air. 3 passes later, the Steelers had a touchdown. First, Frank Lewis took a bullet for 19 yards. Then Hanratty spiraled another beauty to tight end John McMakin. It was good for 15 yards to the Pittsburgh 43. Two consecutive passes, 2 first downs. Hanratty was hot, and with good protection, he went over the middle again, this time to Shanklin all alone in the seam of the zone. The foot race wasn't close. Another look at the Steeler touchdown shows Hanratty looking over the defense while backpedaling deep. He briefly looked left, then fired over the middle. The Fleet Shanklin was on his way to his 9th touchdown of the season, high in the American Conference. Shanklin is a receiver that doesn't get the publicity he deserves, but while he doesn't catch many passes, he catches the big ones. Pittsburgh had now tied the game again, this time at 13. With victory in sight and the volume of the crowd rising, Mean Joe Green got off the bench and prepared to enter the game for the next series. The catchword in Pittsburgh is defense, and with Joe Green returned to the lineup, it seemed only a matter of 4 downs before Pittsburgh would have the ball again. Denver had lost its best blocker, Marv Montgomery, in the first half. Montgomery, an offensive tackle who 3 years ago was a #1 draft pick, suffered a badly broken leg. His absence would further hinder the Broncos and aid Pittsburgh's steel curtain. But what 49,000 screaming fans didn't count on was the determination of Floyd Little. Slashing his way through the Steelers time after time with little or no blocking, the all-star running back moved the ball into enemy territory, where place kicker Jim Turner kicked a 46-yard field goal that hit the crossbar and got a Denver bounce. Denver had come right back to take the lead again. They also took the starch out of the Steelers, for on the very next kickoff, Steve Davis was met hard by 2 Broncos and gave up the ball. This was a tremendous break, and if their offense could capitalize, the game would be theirs. The Denver bench knew and appropriately celebrated. The men you are looking at are the bomb squatters, the players you seldom hear about, but who play nearly a third of the game. They often determine the outcome, and today was a prime example of their importance. Their coach, John Ralston, a master of psychology, has instilled great pride in his special teams. They wear the symbol of the squad, the bomb, as a badge of honor. Today in Pittsburgh, they deserved it. Now, from the Steeler 27, with the defense keying on Little, Charlie Johnson turned to Joe Dawkins, who with 223 pounds, battered his way toward the Steeler goal line. Dawkins is another who is sometimes overlooked, but he has rushed for well over 500 yards this year. After Dawkins tore loose for 25 yards to the Pittsburgh 5, Johnson faked another run to Dawkins, then floated the ball to Riley Odoms for the touchdown to put the game away for Denver. A repeat shows the run-conscious Steeler defense went for the fake, and Odoms was all alone to take the winning pass. Denver, a team ranked #1 in passing, had employed the run as a main weapon, and the strategy had paid off, despite the Steelers' reputation as a tough team to run on. Denver's consistent use of the trap play had set up the touchdown to Odoms, a rising star at tight end. He would catch 6 passes today. Denver now led by 10. With their backs to the wall, Hanratty again went to the air, but was betrayed when his fine pass was mishandled by McMakin. The Steeler bench nervously watched as a game they felt they would win easily slipped away. Pittsburgh's final play was a swing pass to Franco Harris, good for big yardage, but Franco made the Steelers' second straight error when he fumbled the ball away. The opportunistic Broncos again had made the breaks. The result, was an upset victory of the powerful Pittsburgh Steelers 23-13. The Denver Broncos are the only team in the National Football League that has never experienced a winning season. John Ralston was brought in from Stanford to change that, and it appears that in his third season he will. Denver is now 2 games over 500 with a chance for a playoff spot. They have a game apiece remaining with the 2 toughest contenders in their division, Kansas City and Oakland. This was a game that Denver wasn't supposed to win. Did they beat the Steelers or did Pittsburgh beat themselves? The Steelers were coming off 2 very tough games with Washington and Oakland. And although it's almost impossible to measure the mood of a football team, the Steelers did seem a bit indifferent to the Broncos. But if the pressure didn't exist for the phlegmatic Steelers, it did for the Denver Broncos, who have dedicated themselves to give their town its first winner ever. Although they needed no further inspiration, it was given them when Marv Montgomery was lost with his broken leg. At halftime, Floyd Little had promised to get the game ball for his fallen teammate, and now with the game ended and the victory his, Floyd Little ran off the field at Three Rivers Stadium with Marv Montgomery's game ball tucked under his arm.